Hello and welcome to the paper's Women at the Forefront of Payments, a flagship video series showcasing the women shaping, leading, and transforming the future of payments and fintech. I'm Wana Ifrim from the papers, and today I'm joined by Mai Lee, co-founder and the CEO at SAPI. Great speaking with you today, Mai.
Nice to speak to you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Great. So, Mai, before we get into it, can you please tell us a bit more about you and your professional background, please?
Perfect. My name is Mai. I am the co-founder and CEO of SAPI. My story probably starts further back than most people. I grew up in a small village in Vietnam. I won the Mathematics Olympiad there, and then I got a scholarship that brought me to the UK at 16. First, I studied in Cambridge and then to London School of Economics to study economics. So that scholarship generally changed the course of my life, and it shapes how I think about almost everything I do now. I started my career at Goldman Sachs working in structured finance, securitization, and debt financing. I spent a number of years there learning how capital really moves, who get access to it, and more importantly, who doesn't. So that question is what led me to SAPI. My co-founder, Alexis, and I started this company in 2021. What we do is we build payment-linked financing for small businesses. The kind of small businesses that high street banks rarely say yes to. So far, we've advanced more than 50 million to date, and around 90% of our loan book support women-owned businesses and immigrant-owned businesses. And that's not an accident, it's the whole point. So that's me. I'm a scholarship kid from Vietnam who ended up in payments because it turned out to be the most direct way to get capital to the local heroes who need it most.
Well, that is amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Mai. And can I maybe ask, how do you explain what you do to people outside the industry?
Yeah, honestly, I try not to use the word fintech at all because it may come across a little bit complicated. So what I usually say is this: imagine your local coffee shop or the hairdressers down your street, or the family-run restaurant where you know the owner by name. Most of these local heroes and small businesses want to grow. Sometimes they want to hire one more person. They want to open a second site. Some of them, maybe they just have a bit of a slow month. But when they walk into a bank or a traditional financial institutions, the answer is almost always no. It is not because they are not good businesses. It is because the bank doesn't have a way to see how these businesses actually work day to day. And that's where the payments and the payments data come in. So what SAPI does is really simple, especially when you zoom out. So when someone tap a card and make a payment at that coffee shop, there's data. And that data tells you whether the business is healthy, how busy they are, how loyal their customers are, how their revenue moves across the week. And it's a much, much better picture than any spreadsheet or any form that a bank can ask for. So what we do is we partner with payments company, typically the ones who provide card terminals, online checkouts, and more. And then we use that payment flow to lend fairly and fast to the small business owners behind them. And because the loan is linked to their payments, they repay a little bit with every sale. So these payments flexes with their business performance. Basically, the short version that I give to my family who asks is that we help small shops on your high street get the capital that they need to grow, and in a way that actually fit how they earn with their payments company. So typical banks or traditional financial institution looks at paperwork. We try to look at the real business via the payment data as it happens. So finally, the part that I care about the most is that around 90% of the businesses we fund are actually run by women or immigrant. And these are the people that are being told no a lot. And we are trying to be one of the places that say yes, and payments is how we are able to say yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, Mai. And another question, outside work, what's something you're passionate about, or maybe something people might, I don't know, be surprised to learn about you?
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm most passionate about outside of SAPI, and to be fair, it's not very far from SAPI at all, is to giving to education and to women empowerment, especially for girls and women that comes from the background and the kind of places that I come from. So as I mentioned, I grew up in a small village in Vietnam. I wasn't supposed to end up at Cambridge, in London, or Goldman Sachs at all. None of this was the default path. And what made it possible was a scholarship. You know, someone that I've never met decided that a kid from a village in Vietnam was worth investing in. And this single decision rewrote my entire life. So I think a lot about how to pass that on. I have recently signed the Founders Pledge. I'm committing a meaningful portion of any future proceed from SAPI to education and to supporting women empowerment and women entrepreneurs. And this is not necessarily a marketing thing, but it's just me trying to stay honest about how I got here and what has helped me. And the thing that might surprise people is that we at SAPI have an office in Vietnam. As a London company, we didn't have to build SAPI with an office in Hanoi. To be fair, it would probably be a lot easier to build a fintech in London and to be London only. But we chose to build there too deliberately in Vietnam so that the young people, like the young engineers, the operators in Vietnam, could have access to the latest innovation, could work for a company like mine without having to leave home, to leave Vietnam the way that I did. So I wanted the opportunity to travel in both directions. I think, yeah, like the honest answer is that I don't quite really switch off from the mission. The work and the thing that I care about are in a way in the same shape. And if I can summarize it in one word, that will be access. So access to capital, access to education, access to opportunity. These are all sides of the same coin. And access is the single thing that changed my life. And it is the force that I want to spend my life passing on.
Well, this is truly amazing and inspiring. Thank you for sharing. And maybe a little bit back to payments. What do you think what's a problem in the payments and the fintech space right now that you think is being, I don't know, overlooked?
Yeah. So the problem that I think that we don't talk about enough is this. The small businesses who need fair credit are still the least likely to get it, even in 2026. And even with all the data, the innovation, the infrastructure that we now have. So for 20, 30 years, the industry has told a story about financial inclusion. And to be fair, a lot has improved. So we now have better onboarding, we have faster payments, we have open banking, we have more competition. But if you look at who actually get approved for a business loan for reasonable terms, especially in the micro loan size between £10,000 to £200,000, the picture hasn't really changed as much as we tell ourselves. And I'm talking specifically about the underrepresented, overlooked segments, like women-owned businesses, the immigrant-owned businesses, the first-generation founders. They still get turned away a lot, not because the business is bad, but more often because something in the business don't quite fit. Maybe the owner doesn't have the right kind of credit history, maybe the business is too young, or sometimes the traditional model simply wasn't trained on people like them. And the thing that frustrates me is that the data and the infrastructure and to fix this already exists. It is sitting inside the payment ecosystem. Many of these data sources are with the payments company. You know, every day a card machine is running in a shop, is producing the clearest, is the most honest picture of that business that anyone could ask for. This is better than a tax return, it's better than a balance sheet, it's better than financial accounts. These are things that are real and it's live. So I think what's being overlooked isn't a new technology, it is a new relationship. So payments companies have historically thought of themselves as the plumbing layer. You know, they think of themselves as the one who moves the money, they take the fee, and perhaps, from there move on. But what I think is quite overlooked is the fact that they are sitting on top of the single richest stream of small business performance data. And I think that this is very valuable. If more of the industry, if more of the payment ecosystem treat this as a tool for inclusion, it's not just a tool for processing, we could meaningfully change the way who get funded. And I think ultimately, like, the market doesn't need a hero, it needs infrastructure, it needs relationships. So what it needs is, it needs payments company, it needs lenders like ourselves, and it needs the capital market to actually connect with each other and work together so that, like a small business owner or an underrepresented entrepreneur, there is helped and their hard work is shown up as credit worthiness via, this collaboration. And this allows us to, access and view the business automatically, fairly, and without them having to jump to hoops that was never designed for them to pass. So I think that disconnect, that is a problem that I think the industry is sleeping on, and that's the relationship that need to be built. We build all these beautiful infrastructures with the payment rails and the automations and the tech, and now we need to let these things do something more than just moving money. We need them to open doors for the people who need it the most.
Thank you. That's a fantastic insights. Thank you for sharing. And before we close, if you could go back and give your younger self starting out in payments one piece of advice, what would it be?
If I could go back and whisper one thing to a younger version of me, it would be this: you don't have to wait until you feel ready. So when I was younger, I had this quiet belief that there could be a moment, some future version of myself, where I will feel finally qualified, qualified to start something, qualified to speak up, qualified to take up space, especially as a young woman and as an immigrant who doesn't belong here, especially in rooms where honestly nobody was looking at me or nobody looks like me, right? And I think the honest truth that I've learned is that moment doesn't come, or rather it only comes after you have actually started. You have to take the first step, and the confidence is on the other side of the doing, and it's not the other way around. The second thing that I would tell her is perhaps to be a bit more generous with your own story. So for a long time, I thought of my background, you know, like being a village girl with a scholarship, being someone who speaks English as a second language with the accent, being the only woman in the room as something to just kind of quietly get past. I would try to, you know, sound more polished. I would try to sound more neutral. I would try to sound more British. I would try to sound more like everyone else and be someone else. And I think what I've learned is that the exact thing that I use to try to smooth over are the things that makes me me, and that makes people trust me and want to work with me. And is, you know, basically your difference is not a gap to close. It is actually the most authentic thing about you. And for me, I'm starting to embrace my route, you know, with the fact that, for example, you know, us having both the office in London and Vietnam at the moment, that is, you know, a moment for me to kind of finally embrace where I come from. And the last thing, I would tell her to choose the people on this journey carefully and then hold on to them fiercely. So a lot of the career defining things in my life haven't come from strategy. They've come from human, they've come from relationship. So especially with relationship, like with my co-founder, Alexis, who's been with me through every up and downs of the journey of SAPI, with a lot of the equity investors who backed us 3 rounds in a row. Last year, for example, we raised 80 million. And early team members, like the first employees that was with me, she's a Vietnamese, she's still with us, it's been 4 or 5 years now. They moved continents to build something with us. And none of that is in my CV, none of that is on my LinkedIn. But that is everything, these relationships. Once I found the people, I hold on to them. So in conclusion, I would say start before you feel ready. You bring your whole story with you authentically and just embrace it. And finally, choose people wisely and take care of them and hold on to them. That's what I would tell her. And that's something that I'm also trying to tell myself now as well.
Thank you. I think that's a great way to wrap up the discussion. Great conversation. Thank you so much, Mai, for your time and generous insights. And of course, thank you to our listeners for joining us. Until next time.
Thank you so much, Juana.